What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and rank them on a scale of 1 to 10. Now, last week we covered the Armorer subclass available to Artificers, and this week we are continuing with Artificers for the Artillerist. And so if you missed any of our previous episodes, make sure to check out the playlist up in the iCard above, and then we can come back and look at this one. So yeah, make sure you leave a like on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. The vast majority of the viewers of this channel are actually not subscribed, and so please go ahead and press that button real quick. You won't regret it. And you know, if you change your mind later, you can always just press the button again. And of course, hit the bell so you don't miss any of my future uploads. And we're going to be covering anything new that comes out this year. We're going to be covering anything that's already written, all of those options. So your favorites, some that maybe you haven't thought to try before, all of those things will be here on the channel. And so that will be a lot of fun. Also, leave me a comment down below letting me know who your favorite either real life or fictional artillerist type character would be. The first people that come to my mind, honestly, are the Mythbusters, as far as how they just figure out how to, one, blow everything up, and two, they use it for the sake of science. And so I feel like as close as you can get in real life, that's kind of as close as you can get to an artificer in real life. So that would be my answer, but I'd love to know yours. So the Artillerist is a little bit of a departure from what your normal Artificer looks like it normally wants to do. So you're a lot more of a blaster rather than your support, rather than your tank. And this allows you to do some really cool things that you really can't do with any of the other subclasses, and leads to really unique gameplay. So that's one of the big draws for this one. You just basically get to explode a lot of things, and it's a whole lot of fun to do that. So let's take a look at what all this gets. So at third level, we get 3 different features here, and the first one, just like all of the other Artificers, we get the skill proficiency with our tools. And so we get Woodcarver's tools here. Again, this is going to be a 4 out of 10 like what I've done with the rest of them. This can change based on how your DM rules using tools. So this could go down to a 1 and you literally never use it, or it could go significantly up, just depending on how your DM rules that. So I'm going to give it a 4, but it could vary in your campaign. Next, at third level, we get our expanded spell list, and this is a very, very fun spell list. We get a lot of really, really cool blaster spells here, but we also get some really cool battlefield control spells, which I think are actually more important. So we get great low-level spells such as Shield and Thunderwave, so we don't have to multi-class in order to grab Shield, and that's definitely something that we're going to want on this build since we do not have access to heavy armor. Thunderwave is great for getting people off of us, but we also get things like Wall of Fire and Wall of Force. And these are some of the best spells in the game. Wall of Force especially. This can completely change the way a battle has to be waged just with how you can control that. So that's fantastic, and honestly, I have to give this a 9 out of 10. I think that, you know, there may be 1 or 2 that I may not always want to use, but for the most part, there's a lot of really good spells here, and so I think it's a 9 out of 10. I think it's a great spell list. So finally, at third level, we get Eldritch Cannon, and this is kind of the main ability of this class. Basically, we get a little cannon that we can either hold in our hand, or we can actually make one big enough to where it can walk around on its own, and it can have legs, and it can fire different types of shots. So there are 3 different options as far as shots go. There is the Flamethrower, the Force Ballista, and the Protector, and each of those give a different benefit or attack. You control this on your bonus action, both to move and attack or shoot temporary hit points. And so this is actually pretty cool. The damage isn't terrible at 2d8, and it does scale at level 9 to 3d8, which isn't bad for your bonus action, especially since you can do something like fire a spell or fire a cantrip. This is not a spell, and it does not require your concentration. So all of this can be active at the same time, which is pretty good, honestly. This is an 8 out of 10 personally. I think that it could do better as far as scaling, as far as getting to higher levels. And you can only have 1 cannon out at a time until you get to really high level, and then you can have 2, which is still cool. The other reason it's not higher is because the actual temporary hit points don't scale at all. They don't scale at level 9, just the damage. So if they made this a little bit better, then it would be a little bit higher, but 8 out of 10 is still very solid. So 5th level, we get Arcane Firearm, which is pretty cool. So basically we can take a wand, rod, or staff and actually give it an extra D8 to the damage when we use a spell to cast it. So that's pretty cool. This also does combo into our infusion of Enhanced Arcane Focus, so we can add a further +1 and +2 to this once we reach level 10. And so this is actually pretty decent. It's not the best, obviously, and if you have to make multiple rolls with a spell such as something like Scorching Ray, you only get to add it once. It's not to all damage rolls, but if it's something like Fireball, it's going to apply to every creature caught in the fireball. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I like this. It could be better. It doesn't scale, and you're kind of missing out on possibly having a better feature, a little other quirky thing you can do other than just the little bit of extra damage from the D8. But it's still solid. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, but definitely could be better if it scaled or if we had something different. As far as flavor goes, though, this is awesome. You're basically a gun-toting wizard, which is something that's not really been a thing in D&D, and so basically you just turn it into a little gun that you go around and you just fire your spells out of. Really, really cool, awesome for flavor, awesome for roleplay. I like it. At level 9, we get Explosive Cannon, and this is kind of 2 powers worked into one. First of all, our cannon increases in damage by 1d8 to a total of 3d8 on both of our damaging type of attacks. So the Flamethrower and the Force Ballista now do 3d8. Really, really cool. The other thing we can do now is we can blow up our cannon. Now this is a little tricky because it does have a somewhat short range of 20 feet. However, you then force all creatures within that radius to make a dexterity saving throw, and you can do damage equal to 3d8 on the destruction. So this basically gives a spherical bit of damage rather than the cone or the line that you would normally have from the cannon. But this is a little interesting, especially at level 9. At level 9, I really don't want to be blowing up my cannon unless I know it's going to be my last fight of the day and I don't need another one, because the damage you're going to have over the course of everything is going to be much greater than if you blow it up right there. Now, if your cannon, you somehow get it, in amongst a bunch of enemies and maybe they're all trying to knock it down and it's low on health, then maybe. But this isn't a power that I'm going to use very often, and I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10. Like, it could be useful that 1 or 2 times you use it, but ultimately I think it's a waste to blow up your cannon ultimately, and I think that you're not going to use this all that much. So 5 out of 10, I think that's more than fair. It'll be good when you use it, otherwise you're probably never going to use this. Finally, at 15th level, we get Fortified Position, and this also comes with 2 little abilities. First of all, now if we are within 10 feet of our cannon, we actually get half cover, which is pretty cool. That's a +2 to our armor class, which is always going to be nice. And this combos well with the Protector. Now, again, this is where it would have been really nice if Protector scaled, because the amount of temporary hit points is pretty low and negligible, especially at 15th level. It's going to be almost just, it's not going to make a huge difference at this point when creatures are doing massive amounts of damage to you and you're just doing a tiny bit of temporary hit points. It's not going to make a huge deal. But +2 to AC is pretty cool, and so this kind of is going to make it more incentivized to keep one of the cannons on you at all times, and then send the other off to do whatever it wants to do. But you have whatever option you want to do. You now can have 2 cannons as well, which is really nice, and both of them get controlled on the same bonus action. So you've essentially doubled your damage. So this is why they don't scale the damage any farther, because that's 68 damage on your bonus action, which is pretty respectable, honestly. And if you're taking Force Ballista, which is what you should take most of the time, that's doing force damage, which is the most rarely resisted type of damage in the game. So that's actually pretty fantastic, and it's a range of 120 feet. So that's great. I think that that's awesome. Adding a second cannon, doubling your damage. It's awesome. I think it's an 8 out of 10. Again, if the protector scaled here, it would make it so much better. Because then you can have one still doing damage and you have the other giving you an AC boost and basically pumping you up with HP. But it doesn't work that way. And so again, I feel like it could be better, but 8 out of 10, still solid. And so that's it. That is our look at the Artillerist subclass. Now, overall, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10, which is, I think, really, really good. I really, really like this subclass. The flavor is wonderful, but mechanically speaking, this thing's actually pretty good. It's got a really nice spell list, giving us some blaster, as well as utility, as well as battlefield control. All kinds of different things that are really, really great for this. It is held back by the slow progression that the Artificer in general just gives, but still, it's still great. I really, really like this. The ability to have a really good amount of on-demand damage for something without extra attack is really, really nice. Being able to fire off, say, a firebolt and use your force ballista at the same time is really good damage for low level, and it does scale as you go. You could also fire off a spell, because where this isn't a spell, you're not limited to using cantrips. So you've got some pretty cool options here, and your spells are doing extra damage because of your firearm. You can use your infusion to boost that even farther. So you've got some really, really cool synergy going on here to help with being a blaster. Is it the best blaster in the game? No, it's not, because it's not a full caster, and so it's, it's not going to be as good as your full casters. But it's got some diverse things that it can do. It's got, healing, and it's got some utility in the regular spell list. It's got some really cool stuff that it can do, and I really, really like the idea of just a guy walking around with a magical gun shooting spells, and you've got your little ballistas that are firing. You can have one over your shoulder, or it can be climbing on walls, which is really cool. All kinds of things that this subclass can do. It's just a lot of fun. There's just so much that we can do with this. And so that's all I've got for you today. Make sure that you have liked the video and subscribed already, and make sure that you come back later this week when we do our build together. Snappy Bear has actually built one of these before, and so we're going to be looking at that build a little bit and looking at what I like, what I may switch out. It's a really solid build that she's built though, and so it's going to be a lot of fun looking at that. So hope you guys have a great week. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.